Hi,
Woo-hoo.
everybody. Wasn't that great?
Wow.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the CoGenerate Innovation Showcase. I'm Janet O, Senior Director of Innovation at CoGenerate, and I'm so thrilled to be co-hosting this event with our Senior Fellow, Harriet Cole. For those of you who might not know us, CoGenerate is a national nonprofit bringing younger and older people together to solve big problems and bridge divides. Instead of saying intergenerational collaboration, which is a mouthful, we say cogeneration. And we hope that you will start using that word too. This is our first innovation showcase under our new name CoGenerate, but we've been around for 25 years, previously as Encore.org. This is actually our third showcase of fellows, and we're so excited that you joined us today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Harriet Cole, and I have been part of the CoGenerate team for the past 3 years. I have to tell you, I've benefited tremendously by engaging directly with professionals who are older and younger and the same age group as I am, sharing provocative ideas and contributing my skills to support the great work that's being developed right here. And that includes working with our dynamic innovation fellows whom you will meet today. I'm telling you, you are in for a treat. These 15 inspired leaders are bringing generations together to create a brighter future for all ages. So here's our plan for a short time together. Small groups of fellows will invite us to listen in to their conversations on key themes. How cogeneration has always been necessary to thrive. In fact, it is our birthright. How cogeneration builds connection and community, and why cogeneration is so critical for a better world.
And in addition to those small group conversations, a few fellows will lead activities so we can directly experience their work. It'll be a mixture of listening deeply and then also jumping in and participating. We hope to awaken your mind, your body, and your spirit. And what we have learned as a community as we co-generate is that all of this work takes time. Our plan is to end at the top of the hour, but if we go over a tiny little bit, I hope that you'll stay with us so you can hear from each and every fellow. So let's get started. For many of us, cogeneration starts in our home within our families. I'd like to introduce you to Joseph Lamb of Parents Are Human.
Hey everyone, thank you, Janet. So when I was growing up, for a good 12 years, I was a complete jerk to my parents. And that was pretty much the hardest thing I've ever had to admit. I didn't have the tools back then to process all the stresses and frustrations of growing up. So I took it out on my mom and dad. I yelled at them, I screamed at them, and I found every opportunity to lash out and to release that pain, all while I was giving my best energy to everyone else. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom in 2018 that I realized that I truly regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't confront all of the shame and all of the guilt that I'd been holding. To learn to love my parents, to learn to receive their love, and to rebuild our relationship together. So with years and years of truly the hardest work of my life, I got to know my parents, and we went from barely ever talking for over a decade to now running a business together. And that business is Parents Are Human. We make these bilingual card games to help people have deeper conversations with their loved ones, the same kinds of conversations that really transformed our relationship. So today, I want to give you all a quick taste of what it may look like to play that game. I'm going to ask you all a question in the Zoom chat. I'll send that right now. It's got some great emojis. It's the first card from our game. What is your favorite food growing up? What was your favorite food growing up? So go ahead in the next 10, 20 seconds, list out in that chat. Yeah, oh goodness. Pizza, corn pudding, bagels, fried chicken. Okay, wow. This is a lot of food. I am so curious. You don't have to answer this, but where did those food items come from? What was the story behind it? Who did you eat that with? This is my favorite question because it's so lighthearted, such an easy way to get any conversation started. And today I just want to challenge you all to go home and ask your loved ones that question. Maybe even just send them a text. Because when I asked my parents this question, we talked for 2 or 3 hours about their childhood, and it's really a conversation that I'll never forget. Okay, with that, let's explore another place in which cogeneration has always existed, and that is in the caring of our youngest children. I'd like to introduce 3 fellows working on early childhood education. That's Christina Hernandez from the LA Mayor's Office, Tara Chadwick from the Papalotl Project, and Louis Bernstein of Swan 3G Mentoring.
Thank you, Joseph. Early childhood development drives success in school and in life. It is a critical time for cognitive, emotional, social, and moral development. My colleagues and I are going to talk about how seniors, college and high school students can play a creative and impactful supporting role for preschoolers and for each other. Let me start off by asking Christina a question. Christina, you're pairing professionals in early childhood with community college students getting their degrees in early childhood. What's special about your approach?
Thank you so much, Louis. So there are approximately 650,000 children under the age of 5 in Los Angeles County, yet licensed family childcare homes and centers only have the capacity to serve 13% of those infants and toddlers. There is a major and urgent need for educators in Los Angeles, especially as the current workforce retires. The Los Angeles Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity is filling this gap through the Early Childhood Education Student Advancement Program. In its 3rd year and 4th cohort, the Student Advancement Program includes a 3-generational approach that is needed and special because through this program, the Mayor's Office is co-creating the future of children, the future of youth, and the future of older adults. As part of the Student Advancement Program, community college students participate in a paid internship opportunity, working directly at a child development center with children. Simultaneously, students are connected and meet with an older experienced professional who is guiding students through their internship and at the same time gaining a deeper connection to that student by sharing their experiences as older professionals and learning from the experiences of the students. Through this three-generational approach, the onus to develop the next generation of leaders isn't put on a singular individual or on youth, as we often like to say, but rather a community is developed, a community of people working together towards the common goal of connection, the development of healthy children, and societal impact. Personally, I was inspired to develop the program after learning about the educator shortage in Los Angeles. I have 3 nieces under the age of 4 years old, and I believe that it's imperative for them and for every child in Los Angeles to receive the appropriate care and education that they require for their age. I've seen the struggles that my sisters have gone through navigating childcare and their careers, and I want to make a change. All children deserve to be seen, supported, and nurtured. And this is possible. It's possible through community, co-generational, and coordinated efforts. In fact, through participation in this very Co-Generate Fellowship and intentional coordinated efforts, I'm happy to announce that the Los Angeles Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity will be expanding to include partnerships with the Department of Aging. This will further allow for integrated and systemic co-generational opportunities. If you're interested in learning more about the expansion, about the program, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the chat box. And now I'm very excited to pass it over to Tara Chadwick. Tara, I have a question for you. The work that you've been doing brings children and elders together through art, science, and culture. Why did you start the Papalot project, and what are you learning as you implement this multi-layered culture-based approach to co-generating wisdom?
Thank you so much, Christina and Louis. It's such a pleasure to be with you here today in conversation with 389 other people this afternoon. My name is Tara Chadwick, Bosch King Wabagwan Indigo. And I was born on the edge of the beautiful Great Lake that we now call Lake Ontario. And every fall for that first 6 years of my life, I really thought that the monarch butterflies were for me, because on my birthday, they would start their journey from the edge of the Great Lakes all the way to Mesoamerica, where my mom is from. And so later on, when I completed my studies and went back to Belize, I would see those monarchs arrive around the fall time, late fall, early winter. And I would know that they came from my birth home in Ontario. So now here in South Florida, I am doing everything I can to put all the knowledge that I've learned along my life path into practice. And I decided to start the Papalot project in honor of the butterfly and all of us who are taking whatever time we need after this crazy COVID pandemic to, be who we are, to prioritize, reprioritize, to really enjoy life to its fullest and fulfill our purpose. And so as a teacher, as a public health advocate, as an environmentalist, as someone who really was raised by my parents, along with about 7 grandparents and great-grandparents, I saw in my life how important it is to have those intergenerational connections. I think my sister's listening today, when she was before school age, infant, 1, 2 years old, she spent all her time with our grandparents. And so Papalot project really is a way to put that into practice by bringing elders and the very young children together. And it's been a beautiful, interesting process. Learning how to evaluate has been interesting. We've been using stickers recently, but really the important thing is to continue to try our best to support each other, to be who we are, to listen to our elders, and to try new ways to bringing solutions together. And with that, I would like to hand it over. Oh, you can follow Papa Look Project on Instagram, or you can also look for me at taraalomachadwick.blogspot.com. So with that, I'd like to turn it over and ask a question back to Louis. Louis, you're using Sesame Street segments to connect older adults with high schoolers and preschoolers as well. Where did this idea come from, and why did you decide to involve multiple generations? Don't forget to unmute yourself, Louis.
Thank you so much. I would have forgotten. Sesame Street has reached hundreds of millions of preschool children around the world and educated them. When I retired from working there for 40 years, like so many other seniors who retire from their careers, I felt at a loss. Now what? Did I have anything of value still to give? Other senior colleagues who had retired from Sesame Street felt the same. So together we developed an idea building on what Sesame Street intended initially. Sesame Street wanted to attract a multi-generational audience. It used celebrities and humor, some of whom children didn't know, to appeal to parents, grandparents, and older college-age siblings to co-view the show and share in its joy and extend its effects with preschool children. And that idea led us to launch Sesame 3G, focused on under-addressed critical needs of three generations: seniors, college and high school students, and preschoolers. For seniors, we addressed the need for meaning, the desire to continue to be valuable, to contribute to the youth of our nation. For high school and college students, we address issues that social media and COVID have exacerbated: feelings of social isolation, alienation, being defriended. And for preschoolers, we provide individualized attention to address what they missed cognitively and socially during COVID. How does Sesame 3G work? Well, we use classic Sesame Street segments, but they're a launch pad, the spark to stimulate warm, personal human contact with seniors mentoring college and high school students, and senior and high school college students mentoring preschoolers. So let me give you an example. A segment with Cookie Monster struggling not to eat a cookie put in front of him so that he could get two sparked enjoyment, of course, but also deep engagement between teen and preschooler about what they would have to wait for, and a deep discussion about delayed gratification and self-care between senior and teen. We created toolkits to co-generate mentoring and help each generation share with each other. The results have been dramatic over 3 pilots that we've done. Sesame 3G breaks isolation, infuses joy, builds relationships and connections interpersonally and across generations in authentic ways. We are now working to scale our program. In fact, we're working with Christina and the Office of the Mayor in Los Angeles, in New York, and in Texas. If anyone is interested or wants to support what we're doing, please contact me. Thank you. Harriet, I'd like to turn it back to you for our next set of conversations.
Wow, thank you, Louis. That was wonderful. All 3 of you, just so good. And I really appreciate how Joseph's exercise and this conversation that came afterwards reminds us that co-generation is not new. It has been part of our DNA since the beginning. And it reminds me that it is, in fact, our birthright. So our next 2 conversations are with fellows who are using co-generation as a tool to connect and build on the strengths in their communities. And I'm especially excited for this very next conversation with Genevieve Layton-Armah, founder of Bay Area Black Leaders, Natalie Magruder, co-founder of Alabama Leads, and Nicole Kinney, founder of Hey Auntie. And they are bringing generations together in their communities.
It's been a long long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Cogeneration is in our blood.
Cogeneration is in our blood.
Cogeneration is in our blood.
Genevieve, how does cogeneration is in our blood resonate with you? And how does it relate to the work that you're doing?
Well, thank you for that question, Natalie. You'll see there's an image on the screen now, and I chose the photo of Angela Davis. I'm from the Bay Area, from a family of immigrants, and Angela Davis is one of the few Black women, Black Panthers that are still around today that us as activists in the Bay Areas and leaders get to interact with. To me, this was a highlight of the burnout that activists and leaders go through. And I really was wanting to figure out what it can look like to combat that and how we can create sustainability within leadership for Black people, and came up with the idea, and honestly from a place of personal overworking myself, that we need rest, we need time to heal, we need time to relax. So Bay Area Black Leaders was born from that. It was an opportunity for me to create space, share educational tools, learn how to hold each other accountable to resting, relaxing, and incorporating that into our daily lives, into our work, how we enjoy and spend time with our families, and to be really present in those moments. It is where Bay Area Black Leaders stemmed from. Right now, we do educational workshops, we do conversations around accountability with rest, through nourishing meals, we do retreats. We're really just trying to make sure that we continue to infiltrate this idea of healing and mindfulness and rest into the work that our Black leaders are doing in the Bay Area. So yeah, thank you, Natalie, for allowing me to share a little bit about what Bay Area Black Leaders does, including those different generations that we work with. We work with generations from all different, or rather Black leaders from all different generations to figure out and share those different tools that can help us to create more of a relaxed society for all of us.
I love that, Genevieve. Thank you. What about you, Natalie? What does Cogenerate mean to you, and how does that inform your work?
Thank you, Nicole. So cogeneration is everything to me. I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, learning from my father's knee about the civil rights movement, and not just in terms of the great people that we've learned about from our books and from history, but regular people that grew up with my father and who inspired him and who inspire me. And I chose the picture of Fannie Lou Hamer. She's there on the lower left. She was a sharecropper, a civil rights leader, and in her 40s, she attended this meeting that was hosted by some students. They were a part of a group called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And so they came down to Mississippi, they hosted this meeting, and Fannie Lou Hamer went. And, she famously said this phrase, I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And these young people really inspired her to become a human rights activist. She went to that meeting and she went on to do many more things that she may have never imagined that she would do. But she caught a fire, and that cogenerational spirit of students coming and speaking to elders to light a fire around injustices that had been suffered for many, many years really caught her imagination. And so she went on to be one of the great civil rights leaders from Mississippi, and she helped to create the Mississippi Freedom Summer School. And so she brought college students from around the United States, becoming a mother figure to them. And she always believed that the work needed to be done in community together. So I take a lot of inspiration from that. I'm the co-chair, along with Reverend Karen, of Alabama Leads. And we have a leadership program that brings grassroots leaders together, 20-somethings to 70-somethings, and we're bridging those divides. We sit on the shoulders of giants in Alabama, but there are modern issues that our people are facing, and we need to bring those generations together in order to address them. So Alabama Leads does that
in such a beautiful way. And I'm so thankful for the aunties that we have, like Fannie Lou Hamer, that inspire me to continue my work in leadership development in Alabama. And Nicole, I know that aunties are near and dear to your heart. And so I'd love to pass that on.
Yeah, so first, I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for sharing, Genevieve. So yes, for me, cogeneration is in our blood. And when I really think about who inspires me, I think about the legacy of Black women who have been doing this work long before I was even here. And in particular, I want to lift up Harriet Tubman. I take a lot of inspiration from her, particularly in 3 key areas: as an innovator, as a disruptor, and as a freedom worker. And as an innovator, because she, along with a group of folks, reimagined a transportation system as a social network and form of support with both people and resources to give freedom, bring freedom to enslaved Black families. I think about her as a disruptor, existing in a time and a space and a place where there was all the reason not to hope, but she didn't accept defeat. Her faith and her hope inspired her to believe that she could be free and that her communities could be free. And then as a freedom worker, she understood that you're not free unless your community is free. And so she came back multiple times to bring her families all across generations to freedom. And so it's her leadership that really inspires me to take an intergenerational approach to my work. 1, because I know it works. And 2, because it demonstrates that it's not as only a strength-based approach for us to survive, but really to thrive. And so it's that legacy that inspired me to reimagine, this fictive kinship role of the Black aunties that have existed for over 400 years in the United States, but predates the United States, existed in West Africa, and reimagining how this network can connect Black women, right, across ages and life stages, to improve their emotional and mental well-being across generations. And so that's what we do at Hey Auntie. We are a digital wellness platform, and we're a community, and we're connecting Black women across ages and life stages to learn the rules, share the tools, and build the networks to thrive at home, work, and everywhere in between. And we do this in multiple ways. We do this through our small groups called Lila's Corners. We do this through larger gatherings, which we're calling now the porch. We do this through our one-on-one matching experiences. But most importantly, we do this all together, right? And so it is that essence of the cultural auntie that also inspires me, especially Auntie Harriet, that's what I call her. And she also reminds us that we cannot do this intergenerational work alone. We have to do it in community. We have to do it with the support of others. And so I want to break the 4th wall for a moment. And I want to speak to those who might be listening to me and Genevieve and Nat, and you might be wondering, how can I support them in their ventures? There's really 3 ways that you could support us. The first is to invest in our expertise. This means inviting us for speaking engagements and to consult on projects that are focusing on intergenerational approaches for social impact. The second is funding. We need financial resources to do the work, but also too, because part of what we're trying to do is scale and be able to develop evidence-based models that we can share with the broader community. And then finally, warm connections. We understand you might not be in 1 or 2, but you might know someone who is. And so we greatly appreciate any connection that you might have for us. So I know we're close on time, but Nat and G, I really wanted to take a moment to honor this conversation because it shows all of us, I think, that we are what Auntie Harriet, Auntie Fannie Lou Hamer, and Auntie Angela Davis dreamed of. We are here because we stand on their shoulders and they held tight to these values of community, of love, and of cogeneration. And so in pure auntie fashion, then I think we talk about then what is it that we will tell the generations who are coming before us or coming after us, who are, already doing the work, might be thinking about the work, might not even be here yet. And I think we would tell them the same thing our aunties told us. Cogeneration is in your blood.
Cogeneration is in my blood.
Co-generation is in our blood. Wow, that was beautiful. I love being able to, collaborate and learn from you all. But our next group of innovators are bringing generations together in their local communities. They're showing us that you don't need to look far to know where to get started. Here are Ellie Katz of Sages and Seekers, Dr. Roderick Heath of Generation Uplift, Libby Steger of Move for America, and Miriam Sanko from Coming Together, Virginia.
Thank you so much, Genevieve, and to all my fellows, and for the reminder that came from this last group, that co-generation is not only youngers and olders collaborating today, but it's also our ancestors and our history that inform us, and that building and holding and spreading community are the foundation for any major social change. And amid this world that we're in of so much disconnection and division across our country, we know that stronger social bonds are essential. It's not just about this sort of feel-good connection, although connection does feel really good. It's also about building the connective tissue so that we can repair the social fabric of our country, so that we can bridge our differences and work together to solve our greatest challenges with greater empathy and therefore greater impact. Now, Ellie, we've had a chance to get to know each other over this last year and through this cohort, and I know that your program pairs teens and older adults for deep conversations. Talk to us about how that relational experience can create broader social change.
Oof, great question, Libby. It's no secret that ageism is rampant today, and that goes both ways with negative stereotypes about older adults as well as teens. The workplace divide, which we hear about a lot, too much, is just one example of the need to connect generations so we can address the important issues facing humanity today. So at Sages and Seekers, we begin that process by creating co-generational communities. We enroll teens and elders in our evidence-based 8-week programs, sort of a gathering of generations where old and young come together as equals to share their lives as a community, as well as one-on-one work together. During those 8 weeks, we look at the human experiences shared by all of us. Our hopes, fears, successes, failures, all the experiences of being human. This deep dive into the human condition develops empathy, which in turn lays the groundwork for connection. That connection creates a sense of belonging. And when you belong, you care. You want to create a better life for yourself and your community. So when stereotypes are shattered, curiosity develops, a curiosity of what different people with different perspectives can bring to the table. This is when we can bridge our differences and create social change. And we see this happening for our participants all the time. In fact, one of our 17-year-old seekers emailed us after his program ended, telling us that he began talking with his 78-year-old boss. The student told us that because he learned how to have meaningful conversation, after 6 months, he and his boss became friends, and that connection changed his work ethic. And the empathy developed in our programs actually transcends the generational divide to include peer-to-peer connection. We have a school in the Boston area that reports their campus culture changed when they started utilizing Sages and Seekers in their sophomore English curriculum. They told us students are listening to students. This kinder, more empathetic school environment lays the groundwork for broader social revision as those students become the change makers of tomorrow. So now I'd like to introduce Miriam so she can tell you about her work. Miriam, your organization uses facilitated intergenerational conversation about race in America. How has your understanding of history changed through doing this work?
Thank you, Ellie. So my understanding of race comes from the similar place that everyone did. I'm a child of African immigrants who are from Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, if you don't know, there are slave castles that exist off the coast. And when I was in college, I moved to Richmond, which is where a lot of enslaved Africans had arrived. When I was in high school, I took a lot of the classes. I thought I was very well educated about history and that I knew what had occurred. But once I joined our organization, Coming Together Virginia, and I lived in Richmond, I went to different historical sites, I found that I was very ignorant. I did not have a thorough understanding of the contributions of Black Americans to history. And it at least allowed me to not only understand their contributions to history, but understand the story that came from my people, some of which who participated in slavery in different ways, including being enslaved and also participating in the system of slavery. That was a hard process to understand. That was a hard process to go through. I don't think there's anything wrong with being ignorant, but staying ignorant is one of the biggest problems that we have being in the United States, and not being willing to have those hard conversations, those uncomfortable conversations, particularly around race. And what I want to challenge everyone to do today, especially in the wake of the climate that we're in, is to take the steps to have those conversations and start in your community. What is the history? What is the real history? Does it differ from what you were told? And how can you go about not only educating yourself, but educating other people who may have a completely different story in their mind, particularly about Black Americans and the general African diaspora and our contributions to history. And in our organization, we do that using facilitated conversations. And I encourage you maybe not just to come to our organization, but start your own group and have those conversations, even if it's hard, even if it's uncomfortable, have them, because we are not going to be able to move forward as a country if we do not. So I want to go on to Dr. Heath, or Roderick, as we call him. Roderick, you are asking young people to identify a problem in their community and pairing them with an older person who has experience in that area. And the young person creates a film to document the process. Can you share an example?
Well, for me, an example is just getting these young men to communicate. We're looking at a food apartheid. Some people would say food deserts. We're looking at how the struggle for certain communities to have access to healthy foods. And on the other side of that, how do they have access to recreation centers? Like there's no parks. You put these fast food restaurants in these communities, but then you go to the local neighborhood parks and the equipment is old. And so there's no track to walk around. And so it's just a breeding ground for unhealthy environments. And so for us, our project is in order to tell the story in an impactful and educational way, let's shoot documentaries from the eyes and the lens of these young men, how they see the world. This is a new generation, and we've taught this generation to be strong, to be vocal, but I'm trying to teach them how to teach it how to tell your story in a way that is nonviolent, meaning that the word of the knowledge of power and images and telling your story in a learning environment in an impactful way goes a long way than just tearing up and burning things down. So I'm teaching them how to be structured, how to be organized, and tell your story. So I can go. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off, Robert.
Oh, okay. So and this work comes from me growing up, raised by my grandparents. I was around a lot of older seniors that would tell those stories. And then I seen a lot of them pass away, and those stories would leave with them. And I was like, I have to start capturing these stories before these people leave this world. And so I'm teaching the young people that I know there's a new world, but there's people who've been here before you. And before they leave, we need to work together and tell these stories if we want to solve world problems. And so that's why the work I do, to me, is important. And I'm going to keep doing it and try to get the word out.
so powerful. And thank you all for sharing the stories of where you came from and what inspired you to do this work. You know, I think each of us has experienced and borne witness to our country's divisions. And it's not just in the halls of Congress, you know, which we see on the news every day, but we are living in this culture of division, this culture that says, I'm right and you're wrong. And if you're not with me, then you must be against me. And we have to ask ourselves, how can we possibly continue to thrive in this beautiful, diverse, and plural society that we live in if we don't have the civic muscle to really deeply listen to each other? And you might not know it, or maybe you do, but effective bridging work is already happening across the country, probably in your town. You've heard of some of these today, right? The fellows that are on this call today are sharing those. And I encourage each of you to look for and support initiatives in your own town that are meaningfully bringing people together across differences. At Move for America, the organization that I have the honor to lead, we are on a mission to find and fuel these projects in the regions where we work. Move for America is a national service program that trains civic bridge builders and matches them with community leaders who are experts in drawing out diverse perspectives across generations to drive collaborative community solutions. These are groups like Camden Town, an organization that we partner with. It's an economic development initiative in an historically low-income neighborhood in North Minneapolis. They started not with some grand plan that they went out and sold to people, but they started instead by going block by block and door by door, connecting neighbors with each other. This increased trust, and it was an essential first step before they could convene those neighbors to develop a shared vision for the future of their community, one that honors the neighborhood's cultural roots and their economic hopes and dreams. Or we can take another partner, the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, an organization that elevates artists from the 18 rural counties of Southwest Minnesota. They partnered with a small town, Granite Falls, in their community to help slow down traffic on Main Street. And so what do art and slowing down traffic have to do with each other? They actually convened local farmers who were mostly white and local Dakota tribe members. And the participants in that convening shared their origin stories from their different cultures. And the artists they commissioned painted those stories on the street. And amid a very painful history of violence and division between these groups, this fostered greater understanding and strengthened social bonds. And it also slowed down traffic because people were looking at the beautiful paintings on the street. We need more leaders who can create lasting change by bringing different perspectives together. And we are building a generation of those leaders. Move for America fellows commit a year of service with these leading bridging organizations, and they work to engage people across differences to solve a local challenge. They immerse themselves in the community, and they build their own muscle and the community's muscle to lead collaborative change both now and into the future. And we need more of that. Thank you so much to this group, and I'm going to hand it back to Janet.
Thanks, all. So far, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about the role of cogeneration in our families. We've talked about cogeneration in our communities. And now I want us to talk about the role cogeneration can play in our nation and in the world. So given the grave threats to our democracy, you'll want to watch this video created by Innovation Fellow Sky Bergman. It's a trailer for her film called Forever Voters.
Every teacher and every student now has to consider, what would I do if I hear those pop, pop, pop sounds and a siren goes off or an announcement goes, shelter in place, lockdown, lockdown.
There are issues that matter to their generation. And if their generation doesn't speak up, those issues are going to get ignored.
LGBT inclusivity and women's rights. Fighting for equality.
Immigration issues.
Environmental issues.
Healthcare.
The juvenile system as a whole.
Issues about gun control.
Right now, students are on the cusp of adulthood, turning 18 and having that right to vote.
We're going into the local high schools and talking to the students about the importance of voting, the history of voting rights, and why one vote really matters.
When they get in the class with other people with an organization like the League of Women Voters, they get this sense of, oh, this is the real deal, and I should pay attention and I should register to vote.
I hear a lot of my peers talking about how they're really upset with the politics right now, but the only way to get your voice heard is to go out and vote for what you believe in.
If you really want to see a change, you need to get out and vote.
Well, Sky, that was such a powerful video. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about why this issue is so important to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janet. Well, this issue is important to me because I grew up in an intergenerational household with my grandmother, who was born in 1912, and she remembered women marching for the right to vote. And she also vividly remembered how important it was when she went with her mother to vote for the very first time. And with the presidential election coming up in 2024, it's even more important now than ever to get our younger generation registered to vote. And if someone votes in 3 out of their first 4 elections, they're more likely to become a lifetime voter. And for that reason, we need the resources to scale this project from a local level to a national level. So with that, I'm going to pass this to another group that's also dealing with some pressing issues that's on all of our minds, which is climate change. And I'd like to introduce 2 fellows who are bringing generations together around the threats to our climate. Anya Kamenetz from Planet Ed Climate Media for Kids, and Samuel Rubin for the Hollywood Climate Summit.
Thank you so much, Sky. That was such an exciting and powerful reminder of the power of young people and all of the power that we share to lift up their voices. So Samuel, you and I, we've gotten to know each other over the course of this fellowship, and we're both obsessed with something, which is the narratives that we tell about climate change. And I've gotten the chance to talk with you a bit about how you're working to get Hollywood to tell more stories about climate. And I want to know, why do you think the entertainment industry, why is culture so important to this issue? And how can an intergenerational lens ensure that the climate stories we tell appeal to audiences and also motivate change?
Thank you, Anya, and thank you everyone that has already shared so far. This has been so inspiring. I think that a lot of the issues that we've been talking about today are not often represented on screen. And in this polarized society that we live in, politics doesn't sometimes cut the script. We need to be inspired by stories and new narratives. And myself, for example, as someone growing up as a gay man, probably my identity wouldn't have been the same without seeing Glee or Modern Family or Will and Grace and other shows. And unfortunately, that representation isn't the same when it comes to issues like climate or intergenerational relationships. And so that's why, as a social impact strategist and as a storyteller, I care a lot about this issue. And as the co-founder of the Hollywood Climate Summit, in the last 4 years, we've been doing a lot of work to see more representation of climate themes on screen. There is a study that says that in the last 4 years, there is only 2.7% of scripts either on TV or film that include any climate mention whatsoever. And 0.10% of those are related to climate change. And that glaring absence also is tied with a lack of narrative about intergenerational collaboration. We're not seeing enough age diversity in our TV shows, in our movie boxes, and unfortunately, that's bad business, because even though that we are in this era of audience segmentation and everyone watches the thing that like the most, we also need the storyline to bring intergenerational audiences together. And when we do that, we are also more likely to have a bigger audience and a bigger financial return. And I love the example of Hacks, for example, on HBO. I don't know if anyone here has seen that show, but it features Deborah Banks, which is a veteran comedian that lives in Las Vegas and has entitled 25-year-old mentee that is helping her revive her career. And she's very opulent and obnoxious and lives in the middle of Las Vegas where there is water scarcity. And there is a character that is a water patrol officer who is always telling her that she needs to cut her water supply. And little stories like that can be so funny and so poignant also show us what the future that we are headed towards, which is clearly the goal of the Hollywood Climate Summit, which is going to happen next month from June 21st to 24th, both in Los Angeles and online. I'm very excited because we are also partnering with CoGenerate in a panel about intergenerational stories on screen. So I hope that you can all join us for that session for free, either online or in person at the Academy in Beverly Hills at the Samuel Goldwyn Theater. And yeah, like you said, we do a lot of similar work. We are in this ecosystem together. You, Anya, talk a lot about breaking climate silence between generations, and I would love for you to explain a little bit what you mean by that.
Yes, thank you so much. So I agree, we really are both kind of in the business of changing culture. And what I've become really fired up about is the gap between parents saying that they think kids should know about climate change and actually talking about it. So in a poll last year that I worked on with This Is Planet Ed and Capita, we found that 4 out of 5 people believe that children need to know about climate change. Yes, of course, they need to have the knowledge to build a sustainable future, yet only half of parents have actually talked to their kids about climate change. And, I've come to realize that I think that gap is driven not only by a feeling that they don't have enough information, but by the big feelings that climate change brings up in the older generation. I know as a mom, there's guilt. And in the younger generation, as you know, Samuel, there's some anger as well as anxiety about why didn't we act more quickly. And so that's why this frame of CoGenerate has been so powerful to me. And I've been so inspired by everyone in this cohort. And I've been working for the past few months with the Climate Mental Health Network to create resources for parents to kick off this conversation with their children, and for older and younger generations, whether or not it's your child, if it's a grandchild, if it's a young person you care about, that we can have this conversation in an emotionally intelligent way, that we can break the silence and to incorporate self-care practices, which are really important, as well as equally important, coping through action. And I'm really hoping and believing that by leveraging the moral impetus that we have as the older generation to act on behalf of young people in the future, that we can break the silence and bridge that gap. And our vision in the coming year is to continue to test these resources with families, to have them customized to the needs of different communities, and to offer webinars and animations and other conversation starters. So thanks so much for listening to all of that. Thanks everyone for your interest, and I'm going to pass it back to Harriet.
Wow, is what I have to say. As always, I am so inspired by the incredible work of this group. I know everybody out there who's joined us is too, but I also know on a day-to-day basis, it can be hard to keep tapping into that feeling of inspiration, hope, and optimism, that feeling that we have right now. So we thought about that, and I want to invite right now our last fellow, John Adam Ross, to help us process what we have heard and to seal that feeling into our hearts. John.
Thank you, Harriet. Wow, I'm so honored to get to follow all of my friends and colleagues. The work you are all doing to unite communities across silos is inspiring. The silos exist, especially age silos, and art can help. The Inheritance Project, which is a nonprofit arts organization that I run, uses a unique participatory theater-making process to build relationships across societal divisions. We work with intersectional, intergenerational, and interfaith communities, inviting everyone to co-create with their neighbors. Since 2015, we have employed more than 200 artists to lead projects engaging over 11,000 participants in 15 cities across the United States. And today we get to add to the number of participants because we are all going to participate in a co-creative art project. Our methodology, which we are hoping to scale up to more communities around the country, can happen even on Zoom. We have all today sat through incredible stories of real change making that is happening, that is being led by all of my fellow fellows who are doing such incredible work. And we've all sat here listening to so many ideas that have resonated. What I would love to do is I would love to invite everyone in the chat to put one word or phrase or idea that has resonated with you in the chat. And then in the moment, I'm going to take all 343 of those words or phrases or ideas, not all of them, but as many as I can. And we're going to turn them into a new piece of art, into a piece of poetry or theater or performance. So we're just going to take 20 seconds for everybody to put these words in the chat. And as you're putting the words in the chat, I'll tell you the Inheritance Project is at an exciting turning point, as are all of the projects that you've heard about today. We want to be able to do more. We want to be able to serve more communities. We want to be able to expand in the communities all of our projects are already serving. And I know that every single one of these fellows is working hard to expand their methodologies to serve more members of the intergenerational community of Americans of all ages who, by working together, can really make change around climate, around voting, around early childhood education, around reckoning with our the trauma of our American past. And I'm really motivated to be here with everyone doing this work. And now let's make some inspiring joy art, inspiring community of mentoring and co-generation connected to our blood, the sweetness and power and potential of working together to confront our legacy, to inspire each other through unity and conversations, to vote, to co-create, to strengthen. Co-generation is in our blood. Parents are human. The need for meaning and connection is human. Love is human. This is win-win innovation. We can disrupt, we can invigorate, we can empathize, we can solve the missing connections to create fictive kin and unfictive kin. Parents are human in a relational way, and you should all buy the cards as we are sages and seekers, finding connection to each other. Co-generation is through our blood, through our ancestors. Bridge building will conquer divides. We will cope through action. We will be encouraged. We will thrive. We will break down silos. We will innovate. We will build power together. Co-generation is in our blood. And now it is my honor and privilege to invite the faces of all of my fellow fellows back onto the screen so that we can celebrate with each other all of the incredible work that we're all doing around the country. And I turn it back over to Janet and Harriet to bring us home.
Thank you, John. That was incredible. And thank you, everyone, for contributing those beautiful words. I wanted to take a moment and thank each and every fellow who was a part of this today. They have so touched me over the last 9 months, and we've really created this community of support for one another. And I wanted to thank all of you in the audience for joining us in imagining a new way of being, one where generations co-create a better future together.
And I just want to say, let's just soak it all in. Don't you feel good? Everybody, I hope you are feeling as good as we are after hearing these wonderful creative projects. And, while we know this work is so beautiful and life-changing, we also know it is hard. They got up here and told it to us just so fluently. It's took a lot of work to get here. And these entrepreneurs cannot do their work alone. You wrote it, collaboration, togetherness. That's what it's all about. They need our support and they deserve our support. So if any of these fellows moved you and you want to connect with them to learn more, please reach out to them. I saw in the chat, so many people were asking, well, how can I reach you? And how can I reach you? It's easy. You can find all of their information on our webpage. You see it's up there right now. And we also invite you to go into your own community and join forces with other generations to make change. You can work with our fellows and with everyone who's surrounding you. And let us know in the Zoom poll, if you're planning on doing that. Please answer that Zoom poll question right now.
Well, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for joining, and we hope to see you soon.